Hi, this is Len Furman, the Sports Time Traveler, bringing you an episode that takes us back precisely 50 years. It's titled 1974 Wimbledon, A New Queen and King? Subtitle: 19-year-old Chris Evert and 21-year-old Jimmy Connors reach the women's and men's finals. Wimbledon, July 7th, 1974. I'm here in the Wimbledon section of London, virtually about 7 miles southwest of Big Ben, where yesterday was the conclusion of Wimbledon, the world's most prestigious tennis tournament. 2 days ago, the finals of the women's singles featured the hottest young female tennis player in the world, 19-year-old Chris Evert. And yesterday, the hottest young male tennis player, Jimmy Connors, competed in the men's finals. By the way, Chris and Jimmy are also engaged to be married. It all set up perfectly for the possibility of the crowning of a new queen and king of tennis. The women's tournament. Chris Evert, who in the past several weeks has won both the French Open and the Italian Open, was seeded number 2 entering the tournament. The number 1 seed was 5-time Wimbledon champion Billie Jean King, who won last year's title when she defeated then 18-year-old Chris Evert in 2 sets, 6-love, 7-5. But King was ousted in straight sets this year in the quarterfinals by number 8 seed Olga Morozova of the Soviet Union. In the quarterfinals, Everett defeated unseeded Helga Masthoff in straight sets, leaving Chris as the top seed remaining in the tournament. In the semifinals, Everett handled number 6 Carrie Melville in straight sets in just 47 minutes. Her finals opponent had quite a bit longer match. Number 5, Virginia Wade, a fan favorite who is from England, took on number 8, Olga Morozova, in what turned out to be a thriller. Fred Tupper of the New York Times called it as good a women's match as you could hope to see. Wade raced in front, winning the first set 6-1 and was up 2-1 in the second set with 2 points to make it 3-1 when things went awry. The Russian changed her strategy. Tupper wrote, Morozova had been hoisting lobs high. Now she began hitting them deeper with topspin. Morozova came back and won the second set 7-5. In the last set, Morozova held serve and then broke Wade's service, taking a 2-0 lead, and went on to win the set 6-4 to take the match and reach her first Wimbledon final. The women's singles final. In the final, between Everett and Morozova, the opening game took 10 minutes to play, and there were 7 deuces before Everett won, breaking Morozova's serve. Everett then took the second and third games to go up 3-love. In Game 4, Morozova was up love 40, but Everett came back and took that game too. Then Everett broke Morozova's serve again and held her own serve to win the set 6-love. Morozova won 2 of the first 3 games in the second set, but Everett came storming back to take a 4-2 lead before Morozova tied it at 4 games all. Chris held her serve to go ahead 5-4. Now she needed to break Morozova's serve to win the match. But the Russian took a 40-love lead. The London Daily Telegraph wrote, the wide lead vanished, and Miss Everett stood at match point. At that moment, Morozova double faulted, and Chris Evert was the champion at age 19. Everett had won the match in just under 1 hour by a score of 6-love, 6-4. In the Fort Lauderdale News today, Chris declared it the happiest moment of my life. She also described how she had not dreamed she could win Wimbledon this soon. I was thinking a few years ahead, when Billie Jean and Margaret Court might retire. I never expected to win Wimbledon this year. The London Daily Telegraph described what Evert did to win the title. Her lawn tennis values are classic ones: ground stroke control and a sense of the geometry of the court. The London Daily Mirror wrote about Chris. At 19, Little Miss Icicle can justifiably call herself the best player in the world today. The men's tournament. The men's final was a classic matchup. The brash young Connors seeded number 3 against the sentimental favorite, number 9 seed Ken Rosewall, a man who was old enough to be Connors' father. 39-year-old Ken Rosewall, a native of Australia, has been among the best tennis players in the world for over 20 years. He has won 8 Grand Slam titles, including the U.S. Open in 1956 and 1970. He would assuredly have won more Grand Slam titles, but he competed in the professional ranks for over a decade before the Open tournaments like Wimbledon and the U.S. Open allowed professionals to enter, beginning in 1968. Rosewall had first competed at Wimbledon 21 years ago in 1953 when he won the doubles competition. That year, he also came to Wimbledon as the number 1 seed in the men's singles at age 18, but he lost in the quarterfinals. Over the next 20 years, he never won at Wimbledon, including 11 years he was not eligible to play as a professional. Wimbledon is the only Grand Slam title he has yet to win. Now, in 1974, Rosewall is semi-retired, but he is still crafty enough to remain competitive. In the quarterfinals, he knocked off number 1 seed John Newcombe, a fellow Aussie, in 4 sets. Newcombe was a 3-time Wimbledon singles champion. Then in the semifinals, Rosewall made possibly the greatest comeback in tennis history. Playing number 4 seed Stan Smith, who was the 1972 champion, Rosewall fell behind 2-0 and faced double match point in set 3. And yet he came back to win the set 9-8. Then he took the 4th and 5th sets to capture a spot in the final. The match lasted 3 hours and 8 minutes. The victory was celebrated madly in London, since Australia is a Commonwealth nation. The Evening Standard had a banner headline on page 1 which read, "Sensational Ken Does It." Barry Newcombe, no relation to John, wrote in the Evening Standard that Rosewall unlocked the time machine once more to reach his 4th men's singles final at Wimbledon. Rosewall said, "Things looked very shaky for me in the 3rd set. I felt almost gone, but I never gave up trying. I started to hit winners, and Stan started to make mistakes." Connors had a somewhat easier path to the final. He beat Jan Kotis in 5 sets in the quarterfinals and unseeded Dick Stockton in 4 sets in the semifinals. In both matches, Connors had lost the 1st set, but finished strong. The men's singles final. Unlike the women's final, there is videotape available of the men's 1974 final. I experienced the final today, as you can, by watching this YouTube video that I have in the written version of the Substack article. Here's the highlights with the timestamp on the video noted. At 4 minutes, Rosewall holds serve to win the first game of the match. At 7:30 on the tape, Connors wins game 2 without Rosewall scoring a point. At the end of the game, you can see Connors' fiancé, Chris Evert, sitting courtside. At the 20:50 mark on the tape, Connors wins the first set 6-1 in just 20 minutes. At the 37:40 mark on the tape, Connors comes back from 15-40 to hold serve and go up 3-love in the second set. Connors has now won 9 straight games. At 41:40 on the tape, Rosewall can't hold serve again. Connors has now won 10 straight games. At 44 minutes on the tape, Rosewall is ahead 15-40. He's a point away from breaking Connors' serve, but he drops to his knees in exhaustion. At 46-30, after coming back to reach deuce in Game 4, Connors double faults to lose the game. It's Rosewall's first game that he's won since the opening game of the match. Connors leads the second set 4-1. At 49-20, Rosewall goes down love 30 in Game 6. Up to this point, the crowd has been remarkably civil. They cheer for Connors' winners nearly equally as much as Rosewall's, even though Rosewall is clearly the man that everyone in London would prefer to see victorious. At this moment on the tape, while there is a break in the action, a fan yells at the top of his lungs, "Go on, Ken, give it a go! What the hell?" This draws a huge applause from the crowd as they try to will Rosewall back into the match. At 51-20 on the tape, Connors comes to the net for a winner and goes up 5-1 in the second set. At 54 minutes on the tape, Connors wins the second set 6-1. It's taken Connors about the same amount of time as Chris Evert to win the first 2 sets of their singles finals matches. But there is still work to do, as the men play a best of 5 sets, while the women only play best of 3. At the 1-hour mark on the tape, Rosewall goes up 30-love serving in the first game of set 3, but Connors comes back to win the game. At 1:04 on the video, Rosewall breaks Connors' serve to tie the set at 1-all. At 1:07 on the tape, Rosewall holds serve for the first time since the opening game of the match and takes a 2-1 lead in set 3. Fans in the crowd must be hoping to see a repeat of the semifinal. The announcers note that Connors has been making some mistakes in this set, where he played flawless in the first 2 sets. At the 1:10 mark on the tape, Rosewall has a game point at 30-40 in Game 4, but hits it into the net and it's deuce. At 1:11 on the tape, it's advantage Rosewall in Game 4, but he loses the point again. At 1:12 on the tape, it's advantage Rosewall. It's the third game point for Rosewall, but he loses the point again. At 1:14:40, Connor smashes the ball at the net and wins the game to tie the set at 2-all. At 1:17:40 on the tape, Connors breaks service and takes back control of the match at 3-2 in the third set. At 1:20:15, Connors wins the next game without losing a point on his serve and goes up 4-2. At 1:22:15, Rosewall wins all the points on his serve to make it 4-3 Connors in set 3. At 1:26 on the tape, Rosewall has a break point to tie the set at 4-all, but he can't return Connors' serve and the score goes to deuce. At 1:27:30, Connors wins the game and goes ahead 5-3 in set 3. At 1:29:40, Rosewall holds serve to make it 5-4. Now he must break serve or the match is over. At 1:33:30, Connors serves for the match and he wins the point. Jimmy raises his arms in victory. Then he runs and leaps over the net to shake hands with Rosewall. He quickly moves on and shakes hands with the umpire. Jimmy Connors, at age 21, is a Wimbledon singles champion. He needed just 93 minutes to do it by a score of 6-1, 6-1, 6-4. Fred Tupper in the New York Times wrote, "Connors was superb. He has never played better and said so. The little Australian won the first game and then an avalanche hit him. The Duke of Kent came down to the center court to award a gold cup to young Jimmy. There was also a check for $24,000. Also in the New York Times was an article about the championship ball that took place last night. The most famous sweethearts in sports and the new Wimbledon champions, Chris Evert and Jimmy Connors, open the traditional championship ball at the Grosvenor House Hotel tonight by dancing to the tune The Girl That I Marry. They are clearly the new queen and king of tennis, and Ken Rosewall is likely going to be remembered as the greatest player never to win Wimbledon. Postscript. A week later, Jimmy Connors and Chris Evert appeared together on the cover of Sports Illustrated with the headline, Sweetheart of a Wimbledon. You can see the cover at a link I have provided in the written version of the Substack article. But the couple never did get married. They called off their engagement prior to Wimbledon in 1975. Thanks for listening, and please share the Sports Time Traveler.